So it has directed me to the YouTube. Uh, when I'm doing the webinar, I just use the same link and everything is the same, right, Jaydeep?
Oh, yeah, everything is the same.
Okay.
Like, but before you'll have a button of go live button.
Okay.
Once it has
Got it.
red colored go live button.
Yes.
So starting the webinar, you just click onto that go live and
Okay.
minimize it and then you deliver your webinar as it is. At
Got
the
it.
time of Q&A, you can see if at all you want to entertain questions from the comments of the YouTube live video. Otherwise, you
Okay.
can choose to ignore it and answer the Zoom attendee.
Got it. Got it. Got it, Jaydeep. Yes. So I'm on the like practice session right now, and I clicked on like go live on YouTube. So that's how I logged in. So when I start the webinar, it would still be the same, right? I don't have to click on anything. Okay.
Yes.
Got it, JP. Got it.
I'm available if you require the code again or anything.
Sure. Yes, JD. Got it, JD. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We'll just wait for a couple more minutes so that everyone has joined, and then we'll get started with our webinar very soon. Thank you so much, everyone. While we're waiting, I would like to share the WhatsApp group link with all of you. It'll be on the webinar chat box here. So, I hope everyone is able to see it. So you can click on that link and you can join a WhatsApp group. I'll be sharing a feedback link with you after the webinar on the WhatsApp group. While we're waiting, sorry about that. Yes, so you can click on the WhatsApp group link and you can join that. The feedback link, you'll have to fill that out in order to receive your national certifications. So, I've shared the link here to the WhatsApp group chat. So, after the webinar, I'll share the feedback link over there. And I'll also be sharing all of our social media handles and everything that you'll need to know for after the webinar on there. So, please make sure that you join our WhatsApp group, and I'll also share the registration link with you here. So, in case there is anyone who has not yet joined the webinar, who has not yet registered for the webinar, and is part of NSS and you know them, please do let them know that it is a mandatory webinar. So, please ask them to join the webinar and register without any delay, because we'll get started very soon. And last, I have one more link for you all. So this is the third link I'm sharing on the webinar chat box, and that is to sign up for a 10 weeks to vegan challenge. So in case you had said no to joining the 10 weeks to vegan challenge when you were registering for the webinar, please make sure that you say yes, because there is a lot of information that we'll be sharing directly to your emails and it will be very beneficial for you. Without further delay, I think we'll get started. I would like to welcome you all to the webinar, firstly. And give me 1 second, let me just share my screen. Is everyone able to see the main screen? It should say Food, Planet, and Health. It is the title slide. So if you're able to see it and if I'm audible, please raise your hand so that we can get started without any further delays. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for raising your hands. Before we start, I just want to remind the POs, please take a photo of all the students seated together in the classroom, whether they're using their own devices to log in or the meeting is being projected on the classroom monitor. Please make sure that you take a photo of all the students together. So this is only for proof purposes, and we'll be sharing it with our team and the regional director. So please make sure that in that photo, all of the students are seen, and it will be best if they're holding up their phones with the webinar or they're seated facing the projector and you can see the presentation on the projector. All right. So, firstly, I would like to welcome everyone and thank you so much for being here today. So, today our presentation is titled Food, Planet, and Health. So, over the next half an hour or so, we're going to explore how these three elements are deeply interconnected. Today we're going to look at the profound impact that our daily food choices have, not only on our own health, but also on the health of our planet and the well beings of our animals. You might wonder, how can just one person going vegan really make a difference? What impact can a single individual really have? Well, in today's interconnected world, every food choice we make, it sends ripples far beyond ourselves. And every meal that we consume, it embarks on a long journey before it reaches our plate. So this journey affects the environment, animals, and communities along the way. So eating is no longer just a personal decision, it has become a global responsibility. And every one of us in this room, we have the power to make the choices to contribute to building a more sustainable and kinder world for generations to come, right? So you can look at the chart and it shows that the global population today has reached 8 billion. So that means there are 8 billion people to feed, right? And feeding 8 billion people, it requires a lot of resources, including more land, more water, and more animals. So every year, billions of animals they are bred to meet the need for meat, milk, and eggs. So most of the crops that are grown, like corn or soybean, they are grown for these animals to feed these animals rather than feeding the people directly. So raising animals for food, it takes up a lot of water and land, and they are mainly used to grow the feed for the animals and also to give them the space to graze. So this leads to cutting down of forests, using up a lot of water resources and also causing pollution, right? So this way of producing food is very inefficient and it also worsens the global hunger and it puts so much pressure on our planet's resources. So from this chart, you can see that just 10,000 years back, the balance of life on Earth looked very different. So wild animals accounted for 99.9% of mammal biomass and humans only made up 0.1%. But today, the completely reverse picture is there. So 63% of all mammal biomass are now consisting of livestock. So livestock are essentially cattle, pigs, and sheep that are raised for human for either dairy, eggs, or meat or any other purposes. And 35% is made up of humans, and only 2% are made up of wild mammals, right? So this means that most of the mammals on our planet are either people or the animals that are raised to feed the people. And only a very small number are wild animals, right? So, factory farming, I'm sure you've all heard the term, but let me clarify what it is for you. So, factory farming is basically the modern way that animals like cows, pigs, chickens, and even fish are raised on a very large scale. So, the whole idea is to get the maximum amount of food at the lowest possible cost. So, to make this happen, most of these animals are kept indoors for their entire lives and they're either kept in cramped cages or crates or even overcrowded sheds. So they barely have any space to move around or express natural behaviors, and they are treated more like production machines than living beings. So you might be wondering what's wrong with factory farming? Isn't it just the natural part of feeding the world? Well, the reality is far from simple, and there are many things wrong with factory farming. So, on today's industrial farms, animals aren't just bred, they are genetically manipulated to produce far more than they naturally would. So, let's take, for example, chickens. So, normally, chickens take anywhere from 16 to 20 weeks to fully grow, right? But on factory farms, they are pushed to reach their slaughter size in just 6 weeks. And this unnaturally fast growth, it leaves them with broken legs, heart failure, and some of them don't even survive till slaughter. And egg-laying hens face something just as cruel. So in nature, a hen can lay anywhere from 10 to 20 eggs a year. But can you guess how much they are made to lay in an egg industry? 300 eggs annually. So that kind of strain weakens their bones, drains their bodies, and causes constant health issues for them. And dairy cows are also pushed far beyond their natural limits. So instead of producing just enough milk for their calves, which is around 4 to 8 liters a day, farm cows they are forced to produce 25 to 40 liters a day. So this causes painful infections, bone problems, and severe exhaustion. And this is not just the chickens and the cows, it's also for the pigs, goats, sheep, and even the fish. So, intensive farming, they rely on the regular use of hormones and antibiotics. So, growth hormones are used to make the cows produce more milk and the animals to produce more meat faster. But the problem is that these hormones don't just vanish, they can leave residues in our food, which can mess with our hormones, damage our gut, or even trigger allergies. So, what is even more worrying is the use of antibiotics. Around 70% of all the antibiotics that are produced around the world aren't used to treat the sick people, but they are used on these farm animals. So instead of healing the sick, they are fed to these animals daily to make them grow faster and to control the constant spread of diseases because they are kept in such unhygienic and overcrowded sheds, right? So this overuse is causing something terrifying. It is causing something called antibiotic resistance or superbugs. So this means that our body will no longer be able to respond to the medicines that we rely on to treat infections properly. And industrial farming, in the industrial farms, animals like cows, pigs, and hens, they are repeatedly forced to have babies through a process called artificial insemination. And if the same thing were done to humans against our will, we all know exactly what that would be called, right? So cows don't just give milk all the time. Like us, they only produce it after giving birth. So on dairy farms, they made pregnant again and again, sometimes just within weeks after giving birth. And within 24 hours of the delivery, the calves are being taken away. So you can imagine the trauma that this would cause, right? So the mother cries out for days, calling for the baby she carried. And the calf, if the calf is born a female, she would likely grow up to enter the same cycle of pregnancy and loss. And if the calf is the male, he is slaughtered for whale within just a few weeks of life. And this also happens to pigs and hens as well because they are bred and used again and again, and they kept confined throughout their pregnancies and they are pushed until their bodies simply give out. And factory farms, as we all know by now, they pack thousands of animals together in very tiny, filthy, unnatural spaces. So chickens that are raised for meat, they are crammed so tight they can't even move, and they live among the dead birds that are never removed because there's no space to even remove them. And egg-laying hens are trapped in wired cages that are so small that they can't even walk, stretch their wings, or breathe fresh air. Pigs, they spend their entire lives in barren pens, and the pregnant sows, they are locked in crates so tight they can't even turn around. Cows, on the other hand, they stand for hours in their own manure and they suffer from so much infections like hoof infections, heat stress, and constant illness. So these animals are denied the chance to roam freely, feel the sunlight, or even taste fresh grass. So they don't really live, they just merely exist and survive, right? And animal agriculture is responsible for nearly 80% of global deforestation. And this is primarily caused by cattle ranching. So every day, vibrant forests that are teeming with life are cleared to create the grazing land or to grow the soil to feed the livestock. So this destruction goes far beyond the loss of trees because it also wipes out entire ecosystems, right? So because of this, countless species that once thrived in these habitats are now endangered or extinct. And animal agriculture, it produces a huge amount of waste, much more than most people realize. So for example, one dairy cow creates as much manure as 20 people, and big factory farms with thousands of these animals produce even more waste than entire cities, right? So, and since there's no good way to even manage this waste, they just leaked into the rivers or lakes, which kills aquatic life, and it also damages the air quality because it is being polluted with ammonia and methane. So, did you know that people living near these farms, they suffer from more asthma, more infections and health issues because of this pollution? And it is staggering to know that every year 70 billion land animals are slaughtered for food, which is approximately 10 times of the human population. So you might be thinking, but this doesn't happen in India, right? Sadly, the reality is completely different. So let's look at some numbers that tell the real story. So according to the Animal Husbandry and UNFAO, India is number one in cattle population, number one in the total global buffalo population, and it holds more than half the world's buffaloes. And it is also number five in the total chicken population. So, the truth is, animal farming plays a huge role in climate change. So, livestock, they release a ton of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. So, methane is a big one. It comes mostly from cows and sheep when they digest food, and it traps way more heat in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. So this means that global warming happens even faster, right? Then there is nitrous oxide. This comes from the fertilizers that are used to grow the animal feed, and also from handling the manure. And this is also a very harmful greenhouse gas. And it's not just about the gases. To raise the animals, we're chopping down so much areas of forests and to create the grazing and the feed crops, right? So this destroys ecosystem and it releases all the carbon that is stored in the trees, which adds to the global warming. So what's wild is that animal products only make up a very small part of what we eat in terms of the calories and proteins, but they account for 60% of all agriculture greenhouse gas emissions. So basically, we're causing this huge amount of environmental damage for a pretty small return in food, right? And this is a very big factor that is pushing our climate crisis. So, does this have consequences? Of course, it does. This includes frequent wildfires, floods, droughts, and unpredictable monsoons. So, animal agriculture is equal to a huge environmental footprint we simply cannot afford. So, shockingly, approximately 33% of all agriculture water that is used in raising animals for food. So, this means that the water isn't just used for the animals to drink, it is also used to grow the huge amounts of crops to feed them and to process the meat and dairy products. So, if you look at this chart, you can see that animal products like chicken, eggs, and milk, they produce a dramatically higher greenhouse gas emission and they consume far more water per kilogram than plant-based foods. Plant-based foods, on the other hand, like beans, tofu, and oat milk, they have a much lower environmental footprint, both in terms of GHG emissions and also water use. So, as we've already seen, animal agriculture is actually the biggest cause of deforestation around the world. It takes up a huge chunk, about 83% of all the land that is used for farming. And because of this, it is the reason that we're losing so many natural habitats, which puts countless species at the risk of extinction. And on top of that, animal farming is the major source of pollution, which pollutes both our water and the air that we breathe. So we have been made to believe that dairy, eggs, and meats are good for our health, right? But do we know how they are produced? So let's talk about what really happens on most industrial dairy farms. So it's not as simple as just milking a cow, right? So did you know that cows are injected with hormones, sometimes even banned ones like oxytocin, just to make them produce more milk? Sounds intense, right? But it's even worse because pushing their bodies like this leads to painful infections in their udders like mastitis. So when a cow gets mastitis, pus, which is basically dead white blood cells, ends up in the milk that we buy. Gross but true, and even pasteurization can't completely get rid of it. So, to treat such infections, cows are given antibiotics and painkillers, and of course, traces of these remain in the milk that we buy. And this poses health risks for us, right? And as we've seen before, I'm sure you've understood this concept by now that this causes antibiotic resistance for us, right? But that's not all. So the cow's feed is also contaminated with harmful pesticides like DDT and endosulfan. And these toxic chemicals all are linked to hormone disruption, nerve damage, reproductive issues, and even increased risk of cancer in the long term if it is like a long term exposure, right? So now let's see how eggs are produced. So on most poultry farms, hens, they spend their whole life stuck inside very tiny white cages. They can't even move freely and the metal floors, they hurt their feet so bad that many end up with open sores or open wounds. And a lot of them lose their feathers too, just from rubbing against the cage or from the stress of being packed so tightly together. So these cramped and unsanitary conditions aren't just harmful to the hens, they also create an environment for diseases to spread very easily. So to control this, farms add a large amount of antibiotics to the hen's food and water. And traces of these antibiotics ends up in the egg that we eat. So what does this cause? Antibiotic resistance in our body, which means that the bacteria in our body becomes more resistant and infections are harder to treat. So meat and fish are also genetically modified to grow faster and to produce more meat. So this puts a lot of strain on their bodies, and processed meats are very high in nitrates, saturated fats and salts. And these ingredients are directly linked to heart disease, high blood pressure and even certain types of cancer. Many of the fishes, they live in very polluted waters. So this means that the harmful chemicals and the microplastics end up in the flesh of the fish, right? And when we eat them, where does this go? Inside our bodies. And larger fish like tuna and mackerel are of particular concern because they accumulate mercury, which is a very toxic heavy metal. So when we eat this, it can even harm our nervous system and maybe interfere with brain development in children as well. So many of the zoonotic diseases, including bird flu, swine flu, salmonella, E. coli, and even COVID-19, they all originate from animals and they can be transmitted to humans when animal products are consumed. So now let's look at the life of a cow in the dairy industry. So when we see a glass of milk or when we consume dairy products, we rarely shown the painful truth behind how it gets there, right? But behind every dairy product, there is a story of suffering, heartbreak, and exploitation. So to make the cows produce milk, they are forcefully impregnated once a year through a process called artificial insemination. So workers, they push their arms deep inside the cow, sometimes up to the elbow, to inject bull semen. So this is a very invasive and traumatic process, but the cow has no choice and no control of her body, and this is done to her every single year. And to squeeze out even more milk than her body can naturally give, cows are injected with oxytocin. And the overuse of this drug, it puts immense stress on the body. It damages the udder and also weakens the cow's immune system. And it turns her into nothing more than a machine for milk production, right? And the moments after giving birth, when a mother should be bonding with her baby, the calves are immediately, within hours, taken away from the mother just so humans can take the milk instead. So, if the baby is a male, he is seen as worthless to the dairy industry because he can't produce any milk, right? So, many of the male calves they are left to starve, or they're sold for whale, or they're slaughtered within just a few days or weeks of their birth. So they barely experience life before it's violently taken away from them, all because they were born the wrong gender. If they are born a female, their fate is even worse because they become a milk making machine for the dairy industry. So the mother cries out for days, calling out for the baby that she carried for 9 months, but her grief is ignored. And sometimes the workers even place the calf's dead skin near the mother just to trick her maternal instincts so that the milk production does not stop. So once a cow's body is worn out, which is usually by the age of 4 to 6, she is sent to slaughter. But in general, cows live anywhere from 15 to 20 years. But because her body can't endure the endless cycle of pregnancies, milking, and loss, she is sent to slaughter. So you can see the direct relation between the dairy and the meat industry, right? So many of these cows, they are still conscious when they are shot, beaten, or cut open, and they're trembling in pain and fear. So we can't even imagine the pain that they would go through, right? So I want you to think for a minute. Do we genuinely treat the cow, whom we worship and lovingly call as Gomata, as a symbol of non-violence in ahimsa, with true respect and care in our actions today? So in this clip, you can see a heartbreaking scene of a mother cow desperately chasing after a baby calf who's being taken away for slaughter. Alright, so now let's look at the life of a chicken in the egg industry. So, in the egg industry, billions of male chicks are killed every single year within just a few days of being born. Simply because they can't lay any egg, right? So, they're considered worthless and they're literally ground up alive or they're suffocated in gas chambers. And since the chicks are crammed so tightly into cages that they can't even move around or even open their wings, right? The chickens, they tend to peck at each other out of stress. So the tips of their sensitive beaks are either sliced or burnt off without any pain relief, and this causes so much pain and it makes it difficult for them to even eat or drink. So many die from the pain itself or they starve to death. And I think we all know this that chickens are selectively bred to grow abnormally large or to lay eggs at unnatural rates because this uh, increases the meat production, right? And also the egg production. So, this puts so much physical strain on the bodies and also takes a very big emotional toll for them, right? So imagine spending your whole life trapped in a tiny, filthy cage or a crowded shed where you're not able to move freely, stretch your arms, or even turn around. Well, this is the reality for most chickens, and this intense confinement steals not only their freedom but also their well being because it causes them stress, feather loss, and deep physical and emotional pain. And we've all seen it, right? Like the chickens tied upside down, hanging up on the bikes when they're being taken away to the slaughterhouse. So at the slaughterhouse, many chickens they remain fully conscious as their throats are slit or they submerge in scalding water. So they live a very painful life and they experience an unimaginably painful death just so we can enjoy a few minutes of taste on our tongues at the cost of their entire lives. So I want to tell you a story about a male chick named Peter. So Peter's life began quietly inside a warm shell. He was a tiny miracle forming far from the world outside. On day 14, he could feel and imagine warmth, a heartbeat he believed was his mother's. He dreamed of meeting her, feeling the soft safety her feathers would offer. As day 20 approached, Peter grew anxious and hopeful. Soon he thought he would see her face. But hatching was harder than he imagined, and for over 15 long hours, Peter struggled tirelessly to break free from his shell. But little did he know that the world had no place for him. Finally, on the 21st day, Peter emerged, fragile and trembling into unfamiliar light. His first breath was filled with hope, and he softly called for his mother. Around him, there were only other newly hatched chicks that were also very nervous and searching for the same comforting presence. Have you seen Mom? Peter asked. But the other chicks only whispered. We're all still waiting. But there was no mother waiting for them there. Suddenly, they were all scooped up and thrown into a crate, and they were all very scared and confused. So, in the egg industry, there are two types of chicks one that is useful because they can lay eggs, and one that can't, like Peter. So, Peter's sister had already been taken away, and he searched desperately for her and his mother, only to find emptiness. Then the machine roared and Peter was thrown into a masticator. So his tiny voice was crying out for help and he was ground up alive. So he did not want to die and he had done nothing wrong but to be born in a world that saw no value in his life, right? So Peter's world ended the very day it began. And every year, over 7 billion male chicks are killed like Peter. They are shredded, gassed, or suffocated for being economically unviable. But in nature, hens are very protective and empathetic mothers. Just like humans, they care a lot for their babies, right? And chickens are very intelligent creatures too. They're capable of remembering, of dreaming, and most importantly, of feeling pain and fear. So now let's take a closer look at the life of a fish. So when we think about fish farming, most of us don't really realize how harsh it really is. So fishes are kept in very dirty ponds or cages where the waste, leftover food and chemicals all build up around them. And this creates toxic water full of ammonia, nitrates, germs, and this seriously damages their health and it also weakens their immune system. So there's hardly any space for the fish to swim or move freely as well. So this constant crowding causes so much injuries and stress for them. And also it makes it very easy for diseases to spread among them. So you might have not heard about fish milking, but it is very brutal. So farmers, they literally squeeze eggs or sperm from a live fish without any pain relief. And this causes a lot of serious injury and exhaustion for the fish. And because the fishes are kept in conditions that are so unhygienic and crowded, they are administered a large amount of antibiotics to keep the infections under control. But as we all know by now, this overuse creates antibiotic resistance, which is not only harmful for the fish, but also for the people who eat them. And when it comes to slaughter, fishes are killed in the most cruelest way. So many are dragged out of water and they're left to suffocate. They are thrown onto ice when they're still alive, and sometimes they've even hit over the head. So the truth is that fish don't die instantly when they're taken out of the water. Their hearts can still keep beating for several minutes. So during this time, they stay conscious and they go through so much distress and suffering. And all of this happens to fish that are barely adults. So many are killed within their first year, and so from the beginning to the end, their lives are spent in stressful, unnatural conditions, and they're robbed of their fundamental right to live even freely. So fishes are often underestimated, but scientific studies have revealed that they have impressive cognitive skills. So not only can they perform simple math, they can also recognize shapes and colors. So animal products are neither healthy nor required for humans. But what makes us feel that eating certain animals is okay? Well, it's because of something called speciesism. So, speciesism is an unspoken bias where we decide that some animals matter more than others simply based on their species. So it draws an invisible line between who we see as family and who we consider as food, even though all the animals we eat experience pain, love, and suffering, just like the pets that we cherish too, right? So, what can we do? We can adopt a vegan lifestyle. So, what is veganism? Veganism is a philosophy and a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. So, just a reminder that veganism is not a quest for personal purity, it's about doing the best that we can to cause the least amount of harm to other beings. So, what happens when you go vegan? You help end animal cruelty, you reduce the demand for animal products, you support the revival of forests and the protection of wildlife, and you help stop the mass breeding of farm animals. And you also contribute to a healthier, more sustainable planet. You save vast amounts of fresh water, you free up land to grow food more efficiently, and you lower your harmful greenhouse gas emissions. And for your own health, you reduce your risk of high blood pressure, you lower your chances of developing type 2 diabetes, you decrease your risk of cancer, and you improve your cholesterol and heart health. And going vegan does not mean you have to sacrifice on taste. It means you can enjoy a vibrant variety of foods that's delicious, fulfilling, and of course, better and kinder for our animals, our planet, and ourselves. So almost all of our daily favorites like idli, chapati, dokla, momo, rice, dal, samosa, pav bhaji, noodle sandwich, you name it, they're already vegan. And today you can literally find plant-based versions of nearly everything like vegan ice cream, vegan curd, vegan cheese, vegan meat, vegan butter, vegan Indian sweets, you name it, right? So you don't have to give up on your favorite dishes. You just have to consciously choose the vegan alternatives. And there is no sacrifice of nutrition as well. So, plant based proteins can provide all the essential amino acids that your body needs, especially when you combine certain foods thoughtfully. So, some vegan foods are naturally complete proteins on their own, like soybeans and soy products like tofu, tempeh, edamame, and even soy milk, as well as quinoa, amaranth, buckwheat, chia seeds, and hemp seeds. And even if a food is not complete protein by itself, when you combine legumes with grains, so for example, dal with chapati or rajma with rice and idli with sambar, you can easily get a complete protein, and you can also add nuts and seeds to your meals to help boost your protein quality. So, a plant based diet can also easily supply all the iron that your body needs through wholesome foods like chickpeas, oatmeal, spinach, lentils, kidney beans. So, the iron in these foods are naturally abundant, and you can support your body's absorption by pairing them with vitamin C rich options like citrus fruits or bell peppers. So it is a common myth that we need animal products to get our daily calcium. But the truth is, cow's milk is actually made for the cows, right? Baby cows who can't eat any solid food yet. Just like human babies need their mother's milk only when they're infants. After that, milk is really just baby food and it's not necessary for our health. So now think about this. Where do cows get their calcium from? They don't produce it themselves. And they don't drink milk after a certain age, right? So they get it straight from grass, which takes up calcium, a mineral from the soil. So why do we need a middleman when we can get the richest and the purest source of calcium directly from leafy greens? Right? So leafy greens like fenugreek, sarsen, broccoli, they're all very rich in calcium, and also our Indian staples like amaranth, sesame, dried figs, ragi, they're also loaded with antioxidants, important vitamins, and of course a lot of calcium as well. So vitamin B12 is the only essential nutrient that we won't naturally be able to get from a plant-based diet because it is only made by certain bacteria. So in the past, people might have consumed tiny amounts from unwashed vegetables from the soil or fermented foods. But today, due to modern hygiene and food processing, these sources are no longer reliable. But the good news is that you can easily get your B12 from a plant-based diet through vegan B12 supplements, and other options include fortified plant-based milks, cereals, and nutritional yeast. So all of these people you see on screen here, including mountaineer Kuntal Joshar, actress Richa Chadha, all of them, they have embraced veganism for reasons like health, ethics, and the environment. And along with them, a growing number of bodybuilders and professional athletes, they are also choosing vegan diets, proving that plant-based nutrition can support muscle growth, endurance, and top-level performance. So just remember that you are not alone on this journey. You can join our 10 weeks to vegan challenge, which is completely free. You will receive one email each week packed with very interesting information, easy and tasty recipes, exclusive discount codes, and you will have full access to a dedicated 10 weeks to vegan website for all the support that you need. You can earn badges to flaunt your progress and also receive a completion certification at the end. And we guarantee no spam. You can unsubscribe anytime, and you can also join a vibrant vegan movement by connecting with us on Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And you can join our vegan outreach community by on Instagram by scanning this code. And if you are passionate about bringing more vegan food options to campus, you can connect with our team to help implement the Green Tuesday initiative. So, this initiative aims to reduce our environmental footprint by serving plant based meals once a week. So, thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us till the very end. The floor is now open to questions. So, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A section, and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. So, I'll be sharing the link to the feedback form with you on the WhatsApp group chat. So when you fill the form, share how you're planning to make changes to your diet and your lifestyle after the webinar. Talk about your ideas or tips that really inspired you and how they've influenced your way of thinking, and what steps you're really excited to take next. So if you have any questions, please drop it in the Q&A section. If not, then please join the WhatsApp group, because I'll be sharing all the information that you'll need to know after the webinar on there. Just a reminder to the POs, please take a photo of all the students together and share it with me on WhatsApp so I can share it for proof purposes. And before we leave, I just would like to take a photo with all of you. So give me 1 second. Let me check if all right, so there is no questions on my end so far, but if there are any questions, I'll also be sharing an email ID with you on the WhatsApp group chat. So if anything comes to your mind, please feel free to email your questions on there, and we'll be more than happy to answer them for you. So before you leave, please raise your hands, those who are interested in being panelists, promoted to the panelist section, so that we can take a great photo together before you leave. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for raising your hands. This is only for proof purposes, so please don't feel shy or anything. And I would also really like to thank all the program officers for putting together this amazing webinar for all of us and for gathering so many students together. I know you're all busy, so thank you so much for taking your time today. So when you are promoted to the panelists, please make sure you turn on your cameras so we can have a really good photo together. So you should be able to see a panelist invite. So when you see that, please accept that so that you can be promoted to the panelist section. Yes, so those who are promoted, please turn on your cameras. Thank you, Vishalakshi. If there are any other students who can turn on your cameras, please turn on your cameras. This is only going to be for proof purposes, so please don't feel shy. Please turn on your camera so we can have a really good photo together. Thank you, Shushmala. Thank you, Raghavendra. Yes, so if you guys can quickly turn on your cameras, we'll have a really good photo together. Are you guys able to turn on your cameras? Ganavi, Kubra, Tarun, Vishalakshi, Rakshita, all of you, please turn on your cameras. All right, so are you guys not able to turn on your cameras? Is there any problem? Yes, so if there is anything, any problem, please let me know in the webinar chat box, or you can unmute yourself as well. Do you have a problem, Ganavi? Is it not turning on? All right, give me 1 second. All right, so let me just end the